Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. I'm Reese, and you are...
David.
And you are...
Irina.
And across from me...
Igor.
That's a good one.
That's your best one yet.
Can you talk like that? For
But
the
what
rest
is...
of
what- Noah, yeah. And off in a distant land, Transylvania specifically, we have...
AJ.
And today we're talking about Van Helsing, a 2004 film directed by Stephen Sommers, who also directed The Mummy Returns, and G.I. Joe. He's directed a couple other movies, but those are his most notable. The movie stars Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, Richard Roxburgh, David Wenham, and Shuler Hensley. It's written by Stephen Sommers, and it's based off of the old Universal Monsters catalog. Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, actually minus The Mummy.
because he already did that.
Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, Dr. Jekyll is actually not one of the Universal Monsters.
Oh, is it not?
No, he's not.
They just always include him.
But
I
he
feel
fits. He fits right in
He
there.
fits.
He does.
like. They did the same thing in the, what's that movie with Tom Cruise that we watched? The Mummy. That's right.
Yeah.
The one that you liked so much.
Yeah, I think they're trying to like force.
Oh wait, no,
force
that
him
was
in there.
another one of the movies that you liked so much.
Wait a second.
In the series.
Wait.
Wait, didn't you
Wait.
really
Wait a
enjoy one of
second.
the Mummy
Something like
movies?
7 seconds, please.
Yeah, 7
Dude,
is
7
like
sounds really
like
familiar.
I'm shaking an 8-ball and weirdly it's telling me 7.
I look to Reese
Yeah.
for comfort in this time of trial, and he's jumping along with us. So.
Yeah. What, David? Do you have any idea why the number 7 and the Mummy would be popping
What's
up
that
into our heads?
correlation?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does it have something to do with Tom Cruise?
You know,
Not-
I had
not Tom
a dream. I had a
Cruise, I don't
dream
think.
last night.
Yeah. What was your dream?
Something about dragons.
Dragons.
I
Dragons?
dreamt about Yetis playing football.
No.
What?
Wow.
Wait,
Is there a connection?
wait a minute. Wait a minute, guys. Hold on. Maybe AJ can help us here. Do you understand what's going on? Can you put this all together
Yeah.
for us?
Draw it together.
Yep.
So I believe it was The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, where David rated it a 7. Just so
I
our
tend to
audience
forget-
keeps listening to this episode.
I tend to forget
Wow.
about movies that are just so terrible, and then
What?
something comes back. Wait, what? Do you have something to say about the merit of Tomb of the Dragon Emperor?
No.
No.
If you pause any moment in that movie,
Well, I'm also
It's
confused because you said Hugh Jackman was in this? I thought it
Yeah,
was his
well-
off-screen nemesis, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds as Van Helsing?
Ryan Reynolds was not in
there's like
Van Helsing.
a college and frat parties and stuff. Like
oh.
No.
Van Wilder?
No, AJ.
Van
no.
Wilder.
No.
That's way off base. I don't think there's any connections. You can't. I'm gonna have to boot you off the episode. I'm sorry.
No. He got the van part.
You are the weakest link.
Okay, you got the van part, and Ryan Reynolds is incredibly attractive, so we'll
It's true.
we'll keep you.
Let it slide.
Anyway, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, everyone, had y'all seen Stephen Sommers' Van Helsing before this review? Let's start with a newbie here, David.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I'm just going to answer yours too. I know you guys all grew up with it, and I think it was Irina that actually ended up showing me this movie. I didn't grow up with it. So I watched it relatively recently, I think maybe a year or two ago for the first time.
Yeah.
Wasn't that kind of the same case with the first Mummy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think The Mummy, I didn't quite grow up with that one either, and but that one I saw more than a couple years ago. So
Right.
But this movie, it was relatively new for me.
All right, Irina?
Yeah, I'm not sure when I started watching this, but it has been sort of a early Halloween season staple for our family. One that kind of eases you into the season, but you don't feel too worried about watching it too early. So, yeah, I enjoy it for that reason.
Basically what we're
Yeah.
doing now, too.
Yeah, pretty much.
Noah.
I have watched this before.
Why do you sound so unexcited?
Maybe 15 or 16 years ago.
That's the last time you saw this?
No, that was the first time I saw this.
Okay. I thought you were like, yeah, I saw this before,
Wait,
15
has
or
it
16 years ago.
Really been that long?
Yeah, this was 2004.
That's sad. We're all
so
getting
weird.
I
old.
know. Very strange.
So you'd seen it
But
before.
yeah, and I remember enjoying it.
Yeah.
So
AJ,
there you
how
go.
about you?
Yes, so I remember distinctly watching this with my dad. I guess we got the DVD in that red envelope from Netflix that when they actually used to mail stuff.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I've got
And
distinct memories of the visuals of this movie, and I'm pretty sure I've seen it a couple times since then.
And I have seen this movie. I actually remember it being one of the movies I went to the theater to see for my birthday. I was 14 years old. This movie came out on May 5th. So I usually had one of those summer opening films, and this was the one I saw on my birthday. And at least back in the day, I have different feelings on this movie now, but I remember it being one of the slightly disappointing viewings of the films that I had seen in the theater. I was expecting something a bit better.
Yeah.
But that was me at 14. Who knows how much I've matured since then and come to really understand the depth of this
wonders.
movie.
About
Spoiler,
5.
he hasn't.
Are y'all ready to get into the story?
Yes.
yeah, baby.
My life. My job. My curse is to vanquish evil.
His name is Van Helsing.
Some say you're a holy man. Others say you're a murderer. Which is it?
It's a bit of both.
He has come to a forbidden land to battle enemies that are legend.
Oh my god.
This summer, evil has one name to fear. Hugh Jackman is Van Helsing.
In 1887 Transylvania, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, with help from his assistant Igor and Count Dracula, successfully create a monster. Dracula, a vampire, kills Frankenstein to use the creature for his own purposes. As an angry mob storms Castle Frankenstein, the monster flees to a windmill with his dead creator. The mob burned down the windmill, apparently destroying the monster. 1 year later, monster hunter Van Helsing kills Mr. Hyde after a brawl in the Notre Dame de Paris. Van Helsing suffers from amnesia, slaying evil on behalf of the Vatican City, hoping that he will earn redemption for forgotten sins. He is tasked by Cardinal Genet to go to Transylvania and destroy Dracula. He must also protect the last members of an ancient Romanian family, the Valerius, whose ancestor vowed that his descendants would kill Dracula or fall into purgatory. He receives a torn parchment reading, "In the name of God, open this door," in Latin.
It's actually Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. we both went
Yes.
similar route
So
with that.
I would like to hear initial thoughts from the people that are less familiar about this movie.
Okay.
Or less familiar with this movie first. I know, AJ, you are familiar with this movie, but I feel like it's not close to your heart. So I'm gonna, David and AJ, if y'all want to
Me?
what are
Kick
y'all's
this off.
initial impressions of the opening to this movie?
I think when it came to watching this the first time, I'm trying to go back to how I originally felt. It definitely has a good mood going into it. I think I didn't know what to expect being early 2000s, but it started off well, I think. Now, once you start getting into really intense CGI, which doesn't take very long because this movie is nearly all CGI.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. I think it starts to lose that charm once I get distracted. But at the same time, it's a fun movie from the very beginning, at least for me.
Yeah, what did you think about the black and white intro, the use of black and white?
I don't know. It didn't quite grab me the way they were probably intending it to do.
That's sad because I thought that was like the one
Yeah.
really cool
I thought
artistic
that
choice
was,
about
I thought
this movie.
that was really cool too.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be all in black and white at that point because I never saw it before. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's what we're in for.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to me one way or another.
Yeah. How about you, AJ?
So first off, I'm going to correct you. Your assumption is incorrect. This movie definitely has a soft spot in my heart. It's if you're expecting
You should've
analytical
corrected me earlier.
AJ, this is not the movie for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the same for me with this one.
So the only reason I thought you were in that boat is because I remember us talking about League of Extraordinary
Right. I
Gentlemen,
remember it
and
came
you
up
had
for
made
that.
you made a comment about like, yeah, there are people that were Van Helsing people and there were Extraordinary Gentlemen people, and you liked Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I forgot about
but
that.
for some reason I didn't.
No,
For
I
some
guess,
reason in my head I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. No, I don't know. I think maybe I was a both person.
yeah,
Or it's going to be probably a similar vein or a similar theme where that movie definitely has its detractors, but I have a blind eye to the negative criticisms for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, Hugh Jackman is one of my favorite actors, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I
your
think-
comment about the black and white intro, I loved stylistically, and this movie actually got a treatment for 4K, which kind of surprises me because, we talked about the CGI and the visuals, and I think that's one of the, I guess, detractors of this movie is, the CGI doesn't really age well. It's kind of a showpiece for CGI at the time. But honestly, I think the 4K treatment of it, they did a good job of it. I was surprised watching this movie that it didn't look nearly as bad as I was expecting.
Right.
yeah. I think visually this is a far more competent movie than Extraordinary Gentlemen
Right.
was.
Yeah.
I would agree
Well,
with that.
wasn't this even a pretty small budget too? Like I seem to
It
remember
actually was
reading.
large.
I was going to
Oh,
say,
really?
I would have been
It was?
surprised if this was a small budget.
It was a very.
I
big
guess I was
budget.
remembering a blooper where Hugh Jackman broke a gun or something. And he's all like he attributed it to budget cuts or something.
I do know that
But I don't know.
the depiction of Mr. Hyde in this is probably my definitive Mr. Hyde in my mind now. Whenever I think of Mr. Hyde, it's
Yeah.
this image with the cigar
Like-
and just that face, the caricatures of mutton chops. Like, I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of how
He's
he was
like-
in the book, but still, like, I picture
Right.
this straight from the screen.
He's
Yeah.
like an evil Shrek, in my opinion.
It is kind of like that.
Okay, so a lot of people have problems with his rendering in this, but I actually don't mind it that much. I think I've seen worse,
Oh, I'm sure you did. We
Yeah.
watched League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
So.
I think
Well,
design-wise, I don't really fault it. I will say, like, if you're not looking at the 4K version, the CG could have been a little bit better. I think they did a lot better with their versions of the other monsters that we'll see going
So
forward.
on the CG alone, which I don't think we should entirely focus on
Yeah.
for this episode.
Yeah.
Dang it.
I think for 2004,
Oh, yeah.
it's excellent. Like
Yeah.
there's
not quite
aspects of-
Pirates excellent, but still good.
the thing is, there's just so much of it, and it's constantly going that no matter your movie, CGI is not going to look as good
Right.
16 years later.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be the same case with Avatar. I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
Yeah.
Like, it's already starting to show, like, rough edges.
And this
Yeah.
holds its own, like, compared to, the same things of its day and even later. Like, it's not god-awful. Like, it's not
No.
abysmal by any means.
yeah.
So it's really interesting, especially with the Jekyll and Hyde character. I guess I should just say Hyde because that's all we see.
Right.
When I first saw this, I thought it was god awful. I thought it was terrible. Now, it's very weird watching it again, and I saw it earlier today and yesterday. It didn't seem as bad to me this time. And then the more and maybe it's because I've been learning more about the CG realm and how they do it, but they actually used the pinnacle of technology at the time for this. There was literally nothing before this that was as good as this. This was basically the best.
Really curious if, David, if you saw the 4K HDR treatment of this and how much they retouched it in that version, because that's what I
I'm
watched.
sure they did.
I would love
so
to
that
see
might
that.
have, smoothed out the rough edges a little bit.
Well, my theory that they employ this a lot in this movie, but there's a lot of CGI that is candle lit or lit by
Yeah.
what appears to be natural lighting. And I think that goes a long way to make it at least look more visually appealing.
Right.
Whereas when you just have it without that lighting, it doesn't look as good.
I think we also touched upon this in Pirates 1, where a lot of what's going on is done under either dim or moonlit conditions. So that makes it a little easier for the team to work on CGI because they only have to worry about maybe one or two sources of light and
Yeah.
not a full open daylight scenario.
Yeah. And
The
in,
most-
in this movie, oh, sorry.
Just sorry. The most glaring, occurrences are when you have large swaths of background that are keyed in on green screen with live action, in the forefront. So
I do want to comment on just the pacing of this movie, it is, Stephen Sommers is good at this. In all of the movies that he's done, I would not say he's a great director. He's got many flaws, but one of the things that he's just adept at is just breakneck speed.
Yeah.
Pacing. Like I think there's very few dull moments in this. There's constantly something going on the screen, and sometimes it's just, he's like one of those directors who's like, no, put literally everything in the movie.
Yeah.
He's not someone who's like, oh, that's a bad idea, strip it out. It's like it's full on shotgun approach. Like you're getting all the good, all the bad.
It's funny you say that. I was watching an interview before we started today of Stephen Sommers and the visual director talking about his plans for this movie. And the visual director was saying he basically came in with all these ideas, and all of which, they're like, every scene, hard, not easy. Stephen Sommers was not really going to waver. He had all these ideas, and we could barely do all of them at all.
Yeah, there's
and
so many visual moments where it's just like, oh, even this simple scene, oh, there's a visual effect right there. That something's
all of it. And he did not want to compromise it. It took years to get some of these done.
Yeah, Stephen Sommers is to CGI what Michael Bay is to explosions. Like,
Oh man.
J.J. Abrams to lens flare.
Yes.
That's true.
and in this case, I thought it worked horribly in The Mummy Returns, where it was just the CGI was not there to keep up with that movie. Like, it just looks bad. I think this one, it's closer to hitting on a, okay, the CGI for the most part, I think looks good for the time. It's colorful, it's creative. I dig the pacing of this movie.
Yeah.
For what it is. And another aside, this is the first time I've actually kind of taken away the reservations that I had towards this movie, because I never really liked it as much as you guys. I was more mixed on it, and I still am. But this time I finally just let go of like what I thought this movie could have been, which I'm like, a Van Helsing movie taken more seriously with more practical effects could be amazing. I finally kind of just accepted this movie for what it was, which is just this big, goofy, bombastic, popcorn stuff in your mouth, like every scene.
If you're drunk on Halloween, I could totally watch this.
Yeah.
I think that this is one of those movies there are a number of things that you could criticize about it. It's just overall an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
You have to take away that super analytical side of yourself and realize, okay, it's a popcorn movie. Maybe it's got an abundance of CG, but it's all fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And they do have a number of, I think, good ideas as far as design goes of the werewolves and the vampires. I think that maybe with better CG, they could be rendered a little better.
I actually thought, I kind of liked
but I thought they were
werewolf
really,
encounter.
Yeah,
here.
exactly. The werewolf looks exactly like how I imagine a werewolf should look.
Apparently, Stephen Sommers for the vampires and the werewolves, he's like, make them sexy. Do it. Make them as sexy as possible.
No, that was Twilight.
No, he literally said that about these when he was having them.
Oh, he literally said that?
He wanted them to be like not.
They're sexy in a beastly way.
I think that's what he meant.
Not sexy as in like, oh, we're
I think
shiny bod.
Okay, so the vampire brides are pretty sexy, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, but that's
I'm not gonna lie.
That's their human form. I'm talking about like when they both transform.
They're still sexy.
I didn't think
the transition wasn't sexy, but I think when they were in full costume, sure, yeah.
I've been one-to-one comparing this one to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, since that one's still fairly clear in my mind.
Yeah.
And this one pops, whereas
Yes.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is very drab. It's got some cool ideas, but this one, and League is a little more, takes itself a little more seriously, even though it still has that campy atmosphere. But this one, it goes fully into the camp.
Yeah, and it knows it.
Yeah. I hope it knows it. I'm still not sure it knows it. I think it knows it.
I'm pretty sure it knows. You look at the Dracula and some of his lines, and you're like, yeah, he's camping all the way.
He's so over the top.
Yeah,
that might be part of my issue.
His name is hang on a second.
Later.
So his name's Roxburgh, right?
Yeah,
Richard Roxburgh.
Richard Roxburgh. I love his portrayal
too.
as a vampire. I think
too.
he's fantastic. I don't know.
We're
Like,
getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
No,
The thing is,
he was shown in the first few scenes, so I think we're fine.
Yeah.
He is
Igor
hamming it
maybe
up,
a little
though.
over
Dude,
the top.
he
He's
is.
for sure
Yeah,
hamming it
Igor
up, and I
is
love
just
it.
kind of like a
Dude,
Yeah, he's a bit of a campy character, but this guy, honestly though,
He's a full-on diva.
if you isolate his scenes, this is actually a really decent actor.
I agree.
I think he's hamming it up maybe, but from my perspective, I think he does a really great job of playing a believable vampire.
He is
Yeah,
perhaps
it's the
the one that
context
most.
that's a little jarring, but you're right. I completely agree
Yeah.
with you.
He
Yeah.
is perhaps the one that most knows the movie that he's in.
Yeah.
And is just like he's going for
I
it.
agree completely with that. I think because of the fact that he's over the top in a good way, I think he's great at what he's doing, but it doesn't quite match what everything else that's happening around
Yeah.
him. So it feels kind of forced in a weird way for me.
All right. I'm just gonna disagree with that because I think everything in this is campy, from Kate Beckinsale to
No, I think that she's trying too
Van
hard
Helsing.
to be actually realistic. Same
Yeah.
thing with Van Helsing. Everybody, almost everybody.
no,
You're wrong.
I don't think so.
I think
I will
Kate
fight all of
Beckinsale
you.
is really playing it up. You know,
She's a great actress.
Yeah.
She is a great actress. I
And
just think it
in
doesn't.
this, she's being over dramatic, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like she's soap opera in
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Is
She did have to distinguish herself
Okay,
from Celine
this movie
in
is
Underworld.
cheesy. But
Yeah, yeah.
if you make this into a grilled cheese sandwich, you're using Camembert or Gruyere. Like, you're using high quality
Yeah.
cheese, not just Kraft singles.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big old dumb movie that's really fun.
Yeah, and you kind of have to be along with the ride from the get-go to come out on the more positive end with this. If you're not expecting something campy and you want something a little more serious that takes that source material seriously and does something really meaningful with it, I don't think you're going to get it here.
Nope.
But we should probably move on with the story. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're reviewing it already.
Yeah,
we-
sorry.
We touched
Well,
on
this
a
is
lot
one
of
of
stuff already.
This is one of those movies where I feel like we have some conflicting opinions.
Well, we all have emotional investment in this, or most of us.
Yeah,
that
we
too.
do. We do.
Exactly.
Van Helsing travels to Transylvania, accompanied by Karl, an eccentric friar and inventor. Anna and Velkin Valerius attempt to kill a werewolf controlled by Dracula, but both it and Velkin fall into a river. Van Helsing and Karl arrive in a village where they and Anna are attacked by Dracula's three brides, Verona, Marischka, and Alira. Van Helsing slays Marischka. Anna agrees to work with Van Helsing, but encounters Velkin, now cursed to become a werewolf during a full moon. The two follow Velkin to Castle Frankenstein, now used by Dracula in an attempt to duplicate Dr. Frankenstein's experiments to give life to his undead children, using Velkin as a conduit. While Anna tries to rescue Velkin, who succumbs to his curse, Van Helsing confronts Dracula, who expresses familiarity with Van Helsing, addressing him as Gabriel, and offering to return his memories to him. Van Helsing and Anna flee the castle, Dracula discovering that his experiment has failed. Karl witnesses a painting come to life, depicting two knights, respectively transforming into a vampire and a werewolf.
It's interesting seeing David Wenham in this role compared to what he's in now with the super macho,
Yeah.
masculine powerhouse roles. And you see him in this hunching little, almost like he's kind of a Q figure from James Bond, where he equips him with all the gadgets and stuff.
And remember, this was directly juxtaposed against Return of the King, the same year.
Yep.
Later in the year, but same year altogether.
He was playing Faramir, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Not quite as masculine.
I love when actors get to play diverse roles, and I think it must have been fun for him to do this rather than be typecast as, some other serious, noble character.
But one of the main things of this movie that I really like is the mood of it.
Yeah.
You know, like starting the movie, you know what you're getting into, and you're like, yeah, like I like that.
I'm along for the ride.
This is dumb, but I like it.
Yeah.
There's some moments that go almost too dumb for me at times, like that do make me cringe ever so slightly.
Well, the crotch land was kind of cringe.
The crotch land and when she does the backflip onto the tree and it like falls down. For me, there's some movies that even at the level that this film is operating at, it still strains credulity, I guess.
Yeah.
But the pace keeps you flowing.
Yes,
yeah,
the
you're
pace
all
is-
like,
that's the
okay,
most
I can
important
forget
part.
it and then
It
move
never
on.
lets you. Yeah, it never lets you think about it for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want to call out these action sequences, of which there are numerous. Like, I can't even count on all of my fingers how many action sequences are in this movie.
All 7?
A little too much, actually.
It maybe, but I think they're all actually creatively constructed. Like, there's always some kind of cool, interesting dynamic in what's happening. Like, one's got
I
a
agree.
werewolf. There's this really exhilarating stagecoach sequence where the stagecoach catches on fire and the werewolf's like pursuing them, and
Yeah.
there's just so much going on. And you got the Jekyll and Hyde at the beginning. You got the
yep.
black and white one at the beginning. There's
Pretty much everything in this is action. There is literally almost
Yeah.
no scene that's not action.
Yeah.
And that it helps with pacing and energy because you're just constantly on the edge of your seat trying to
Yeah.
like understand what's happening. I just think they were kind of lazy with the choreography.
I don't think so.
Really?
I think the choreography.
Let me explain. I think that there was almost no fighting scenes that were actually believable. A lot of it is just people knocking somebody into a wall or a tree or into a barn, and there is no actual fighting. There is none.
Superhuman.
Yeah, but when you're going to kill somebody or do something intense, like actually give me something, not just someone flying back and hitting something. I don't know. I enjoyed a lot of this movie, but
Well,
some
a lot
of the
of it had
areas
to be-
is like there was nothing in the action.
I'll agree they didn't have many person-to-person fights choreographed, but that's like AJ said, because, you know, he's fighting monsters. You really can't do that. You literally can't have him like choreograph a fist fight with a big old...
I don't need a fist
Until the
fight.
end when he becomes a werewolf.
Pull out the
Yeah.
Muay Thai.
Yeah,
against
until the
Dracula.
end. Yeah.
I don't need a fist fight. I just need something more believable.
I think the CG quotation marks choreography was cool.
It's really fun when people get knocked into things.
So
So
that's not the only thing that happened. I mean,
I'm actually not fully positive on this movie.
Yeah.
One of my what David said is the least of my problems with this. I do more have a problem actually with Van Helsing himself. I don't think it's bad, but I think it's one of the lesser Hugh Jackman performances. I don't feel incredibly emotionally invested in his character. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something they could have done better here.
Yeah, and you get
Like,
the hint
give
of
him-
they want you to, especially with some of the
Yeah.
background, who am I kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but they never fully like expound on any of that. And he's never really emotionally compromised until the very, very end.
It's interesting that you say that, because while I was watching this critically for recently, I thought about his character and realized, if he was played by any other person, I would not be about this character, because I think they're sort of relying on the fact that Hugh Jackman is a big name.
he's likable.
And they don't really develop who he is that much, because I'm fine watching this with it just being Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, they're kind of hoping you carry that baggage from the X-Men Wolverine character into
At the
this.
same time, like he's still emoting, he's still portraying a
Right,
character. It's his written
Yeah.
background that's the issue, not his
Yeah.
performance. And it's
That's
almost
exactly
like
what it is.
with Gerard Butler in Dredd, like there's subtlety to what he's doing that kind of still fleshes him out three-dimensionally, even if his written background is lackluster.
Did you mean Keith Urban?
Yeah, you're
in
right. Why
Dredd?
did I say Gerard Butler? I was thinking
don't
of
know.
300.
They're kind of on the same category,
Urban.
though.
No, I was
Carl
I saw
Urban. That's
David
what
Winham,
I
and
was
so I was on 300 mode.
Dude, I made a mess up trying to correct yours.
I'm here to kill some bad guys.
Carl Urban. There we go. Dredd.
Know what you were saying?
We're on weird pages.
They did that whole kind of, lost memory thing with this one, and I think they did it better than they did it in Cowboys and Aliens.
But what about his character in X-Men?
We can't really compare.
Well, that's not a
X-Men,
fair
though.
comparison.
Although
'cause-
he also had a similar thing going
Okay,
for him.
we
yeah,
have
but
to-
that's not his whole.
I think
That's
we
not
can
his
all,
whole thing in this.
I
though.
know.
I think we can all agree that we regard X-Men as a little higher, right?
Yeah.
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 But, okay,
I would say
but
a lot
that
higher.
being said, I think with what he's given,
Yeah, that was my point.
he does a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that in general, Hugh Jackman just has a charisma to him. It's more
Right,
enjoyable.
right.
I don't think it's Hugh Jackman's fault.
It's not at all.
Exactly.
Well, he
I think
if
we're all on
anything,
the
he
same page
adds
there.
to it. But I think given a follow-up movie like this probably would have
perhaps.
had it been more successful, they might have explored his backstory a little more. They might have added a little more character to him. But in the meantime, this movie's supposed to be a fast-paced,
Yeah.
get through everything. You can't really
dwell on
rest
subtleties.
on, the subtleties of super in-depth character.
Yes.
And I think for the time that they gave his character to grow, it was done relatively well.
Yeah. He's kind of a Witcher character if you think about it.
A little
It's the
bit.
guy who goes around killing monsters.
Contract killer.
People
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
hate him every time he comes into a new city.
Yeah,
You know,
I can see that.
He
yeah.
doesn't quite, know
makes
what to
sense.
do. He doesn't quite belong. He's unemotional,
Yeah.
detached.
Yeah.
So how do we feel about this whole underground group of Catholic monster killers?
I think it's kind of hilarious.
They're not all Catholic.
And they
It's
combine all the
religious,
others.
actually.
Yes.
I saw an
Okay.
Orthodox priest in there.
Yep.
Yeah, they were
he walks across the
imams,
scene.
and it was pan-religious.
Yeah. I think honestly that kind of makes sense. It in a weird way you can explain it away where these are monsters that are kind of a threat to the world in general, so they kind of create this understanding that we need to get rid of them through holy means. So I get it. I think it's funny.
I'm on board with the decision, but some of the exposition dump at that point was a bit much.
Like what?
Basically he that whole scene is there to just tell you
Yeah.
what's happening.
No, I agree
It
with
sets
you.
up him
Yeah.
being, I don't have my memory. Tell me what's happening.
Oh.
And
The
they
cardinal
walk down
just
there.
telling you what's
Yeah.
going to happen in the story.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
But this movie is not subtle in anything.
Yeah,
Not at
I
all.
think from the beginning I know that it's not subtle, so I'm
Yeah.
just like whatever.
I kind of just shrug. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, it's
I'm ready to accept.
that type of movie
Yeah.
where you don't really question a lot of things because that's not the point of it.
So how
So-
far have we gotten in this story so far?
all over
So
the
I
place.
was I was
The
gonna
car-
just hit us up on the next portion, which is
No, we're at the Carl witnesses the painting come to life.
Yeah.
and-
Oh,
with
okay.
we also have the whole werewolf turning scene as well.
Yes.
Oh, her brother?
Yeah, and I liked that as well.
Yeah, you got a little bit of emotional connection in that.
Yeah.
It's not even just the emotional connection. I know to a lot of people they might view the scene where he's like crawling up the wall as cheesy, but I was like, oh, that is like
I liked it.
I
Where he
haven't
tears his
seen
skin
that.
off to transform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I
I,
thought
think
that was
that's
cool.
cool. I
right.
like the idea that
David
becoming a...
disagrees.
I have
Okay,
no,
hang
I have
on,
things
hang
to
on.
say.
So I think I like it conceptually. I think it has aged, obviously,
A little
like
bit.
most CGI would. But the concept that transforming into a werewolf is not a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And ripping of the skin and the stretching of bones, I think that's a really cool concept.
I would say that the best part about all of this is the CGI. It's weird. I thought that would be my least favorite thing and the thing I would criticize this movie the most on. But the more I looked into it and watching it again, after learning more about this movie, I appreciate it so much more.
Yeah.
And the werewolf scene we're talking about when Anna's brother turns,
Yeah.
the CGI was my favorite part about that. But
Yeah.
man, the decisions to like have them on the wall. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
werewolves don't do that. That is
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a thing.
Kind of
Right.
like an exorcism
Exactly.
type
Yeah,
scenario.
it was too much. Like I
100% with you
know
there.
that's what it is.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
a lot of like walking on walls and crawling
And
on walls.
not
and-
only are they walking on walls, it's not done in a way that's believable. I know they're laying on their back on the ground. They just staged a scene around them
Right.
to look like they're on the ceiling. It doesn't feel real to me,
Or
so
when-
I'm not in it.
Dracula and his two remaining brides literally just ghost slide backwards into the mirror like they're on a
Yep.
conveyor belt.
Yep.
That was the dumbest visual
style
effect of that whole
thing.
movie. Like
that
that's
was
the
a
one that
little weird.
like really irked
Yeah.
me for some
Yep,
reason.
yep.
I don't know
Yeah.
why.
I think for the movie as a whole, this sort of represents kind of it goes back to your comment about how he wanted the vampires and werewolves to look sexy. I think he wants everything to look sexy.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
his-
what
And that's
you
every
that's
movie
what
of
you
his,
feel
too.
going into this movie. Everything has to be super sexy, you know.
And
So-
his definition of sexy is cool.
yeah.
It is so true.
Yeah.
So,
can't believe
so
it's
that's
not butter.
CGI. So the thing is, like, I agree with you. The going up the wall is completely unnecessary, but that's the reason he does it. It's unnecessary just for the sake of looking cool.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny how Kate Beckinsale wears yoga pants the whole time.
Yeah. So I feel
Leather
like
yoga
we've
pants.
talked a lot of aesthetics and how things are done, and not a lot of actual story.
Which is, I
'cause
think,
that's the
is his
story matter.
focus.
but I do want to kind of pivot back to that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we do figure out that Dracula is just breeding a whole crap ton of kids,
And
and
they
they're all
look
these little
gross.
monster babies. What is so? I turn my brain off when I watch a movie like this. But
Yeah.
if any of y'all focused more closely, like, what's his plan? Like, why is he breeding this army
Okay.
of
World
children?
domination.
It is
Actually-
world domination, but in a weird way. Part of the aspect I did like about this was that there was a sense of kind of love for their offspring, you know?
Even though
It's
there's
really
they're these
weird.
little demon babies
I know,
that look
they're-
nothing like anything that would.
They look like little gargoyles. Honestly,
Not
the
good.
vampires kind of remind me of gargoyles.
Yeah.
But I think that was an interesting choice to add into their character development, was that they actually do kind of genuinely care about their children, even
Yeah.
though there are millions of them and they all look exactly the same.
Hey,
Yeah, and Dracula
Finding
for his
Nemo felt the
brides,
same
even though
way.
they're semi-disposable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that element, but at the same time, yeah, I guess they're just world domination, and then once they kill everyone, they'll all starve, I guess.
They kind of set this up where, I mean, they don't dwell on it because this movie is really fast paced. But they have that setup where he's like saying like, it's me against the entire world, and
it's a classic trope, I think.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
classic trope. But that's kind of his motivations for, world domination. He just wants it all to end because he's been persecuted.
Dracula has always been a deep character, like not just a two-dimensional,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
vampire, like kill it. Like he's always
Yeah.
an ancient force that's, got stuff going on mentally.
yeah.
yeah.
Although this one I didn't quite feel that.
So
I mean, there's a hint of it.
Yeah.
again, understanding that my brain was turned off completely for this movie, why did they need Frankenstein to give their creatures the same like everlasting life that they had?
So the concept, I think, is that, sorry.
No, you got it.
The concept here is that they are dead and they can't create life, so that's their curse. But Frankenstein is the only example of something that was dead that was brought back to life. So he essentially has some kind of power that's residual from Dr. Frankenstein that can breathe life into their offspring.
Sure.
I think it
Sure,
is
that
it
is a good
is
answer
a
to that.
stretch.
I think
it
that-
is a stretch, but it's like that's their only connection.
I think what their whole plan was transferring his kind of life force into the whole thing. That's why
Yeah.
they had him in that contraption at the top. But that's ahead
Right.
of the...
Yeah, it's again, like he said very in the beginning where he's actually talking to Frankenstein, you've basically proven the triumph over God. And so he's
Right.
taking that life force that's in defiance of the laws of nature, as they were, so that he can overcome those and take Frankenstein's creature and just apply his transcendence to his own means. I
Yeah.
guess.
That does actually open up another question, though. Why the werewolves as a substitute? Is it because they're just superhuman?
I was so confused with this plot.
Well, the thing, he had a thing that could cure werewolves, and then he mentions that werewolves, he wants to cure the werewolf disease or whatever it is, because werewolves are the only thing that can kill him.
Yeah, something like that.
No, that is exactly it.
It,
Because
it's
a
like
werewolf
it
is the only
conflicts
thing.
with his being in some way. I don't know.
Yeah. That was
It
also
very
muddled.
weird.
It just seemed like a quick fix to get Van Helsing to be human again.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
Need
look
an
at Freudian
antidote.
psychology, like
Yeah.
if you go all the way back,
He's his mom.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know quite what the logic is there. I mean, I'm
I-
sure you
Turn
could
off your
explain it
brains,
away.
guys.
It's a
the
grilled cheese
only
sandwich movie.
explanation. Yeah.
I like my Gruyere.
The only explanation is that it's one cryptid versus another, and so one cryptid has the power to eliminate the other cryptid. So that's the only explanation I really have.
The more I learn about this movie, the more I learn it is style over substance.
Oh, yeah.
If you can watch this movie and enjoy the style, the mood, the pacing,
Yeah.
the energy, then you're going to be fine.
So-
if you try to look for substance, a plot, a deeper meaning,
Yeah.
you're not going to get it.
This
And it has energy. Sorry.
this
That's why
has
everyone's wearing a corset.
This has huge connections to basically comic book logic. I think this would basically translate as a comic book and be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I would agree.
It definitely would. Like,
So-
this is straight out of a comic book.
Yeah, I mean, even Van
before
Helsing's character is not like Abraham Van Helsing from
Right.
Bram
Right.
Stoker. Like, it's not derivative at all. Like, it's just its own. It's like you said, it's comic book esque.
He took his artistic license and ran with it.
All right, one other plot point I'd like to discuss before we move on. So we have the confrontation between Van Helsing and Dracula, where Dracula says that there's a familiarity there, and there's a connection that they're linked kind of through time.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about this new development in the plot? Does it intrigue you, or do you not care?
This is how I agree with you. I did not care. I was just like, oh, cool, okay.
I was like, that's
I just
wrinkle.
went with it.
Okay.
Although I will call back to attention the Richard Roxburgh moment. I don't know why. Every time he comes on screen, he has this presence about him that I just enjoy watching.
Yeah.
And the whole dialogue about him hearing people's heartbeats, and then like
That was a good line.
I could dance to the beat.
That was a good-
you know,
that was a good
and
line.
so but strangely, yours is very slow or something like that. You know, I don't know. He has this kind of charismatic persona that I think really fits his character.
Yeah, my side that's attached to this wants to say, oh yeah, I like that kind of interesting destined rivalry that they're supposed to have. But then I also thought, but wait, it is really cool to just have it be Van Helsing versus Dracula.
Yeah.
And have that be actually a more personal connection with his
Dracula's
forgotten memories
the big bad here.
than it being a Gabriel Lucifer thing.
Yeah. So we also have the invasion of all of the babies throughout the village. Yet another action sequence.
Yep.
People are getting
Weird.
carried off and taken, and they're like, "Feed, my darlings, feed." I thought this was one of the less successful moments in the movie. I think this kind of shows the movie's age a bit, even though I think it still is fine.
I think it just had to set up the danger, and that's why it had to exist.
Yeah, this is only from one of the wives, and they give birth a lot.
Yeah, dang, man! Imagine that process.
Yeah, I was like,
Ew.
I never want to see what that looks like.
Gatling
There's
gun.
still humans anatomically. There's the word. So
Weird
that
change,
would
though.
take a while.
Yeah.
Weirdly, the thing that this reminded me of was the new Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick one. What year was that?
1996?
Oh, 1996?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that kind of reminded me of it, just the
Yeah.
eggs
I was actually
sitting
thinking
there.
the same
yeah.
thing.
Was
So
that
I
96?
imagine-
I thought it was like closer to 2000 or 99.
It's not, actually. It's a mid-90s movie.
I imagine it's less like a pregnancy and more like maybe dropping a bunch of eggs the way like chickens do.
Are we going to...
But that's why I'm saying anatomically it doesn't make sense. We
what
can't
does
think about it.
vampiric mitosis look like?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then I think maybe Dracula incubates
I think they're
the
just...
eggs. I don't know.
It's one of those things where because they're all dead, they're just born dead. I don't...
You think Dracula just squats on the eggs just to keep them warm?
I don't know.
Hurry.
Upside down.
But the thing is, they can't keep them warm because they're cold.
Moving on.
Oh, sorry. To correct you, it was closer to 2000. Or to correct myself, it was 1998, not 96.
Okay, you're
So-
close.
Just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
Let's move on with the old story there.
Hey.
Van Helsing and Anna reach a deep cave below the destroyed windmill, where they meet Frankenstein's monster, who is the true key to fulfilling Dracula's plans. Van Helsing opts to shelter the monster in the Vatican. Just outside Budapest, the group are ambushed by the brides and Velkin. Verona and Velkin are both killed, but not before the latter bites Van Helsing, cursing him to become a werewolf. Anna is kidnapped by Alira, who arranges with Van Helsing to trade her for the monster. Van Helsing locks the monster within a crypt, but he is captured by Dracula's undead horde. Van Helsing and Carl save Anna, using a solar-based bomb created by Carl to destroy the vampires.
All right.
The holy hand
Yay,
grenade of
solar-based
Antioch.
bomb.
I think
Jesu Domine.
it is
Requiem.
Yeah, you had it right.
it is one of the more ridiculous action sequences, especially with the horses jumping over the chasm.
Yeah.
But I actually really like this stagecoach.
Oh
scene.
yeah, it's really.
Okay,
did it
this
catch on
is also
fire?
a...
I don't know.
I'm not
It's just
sure.
randomly on fire once the werewolf
There's
showed
a
up.
Other
lot of
certain
fire in this.
gadgets.
Maybe Michael Bay did have a little influence.
There were no
But
explosions.
This is an example of score really coming through. Like the
Oh,
film
yeah.
score for
We haven't
this
talked about
is
that. Yeah.
so
Alan
good.
Silvestri did a really good
Yes.
job with the score here.
I felt that Lilo and Stitch all the way.
Shut up.
Hahnemann's
Sound
family.
right either.
I did. It's Alan Silvestri. He did both.
So yeah, I
I
really
mean,
like
I
that
know.
sequence. There's this really nice money shot of the werewolf like jumping through the flames.
Yeah,
where
that
they
was cool.
slow it down.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
good.
whoa, that
That's
actually
good.
still looks
It
good.
did.
Yeah.
It held up.
Yeah. I was impressed.
I can't remember which scene, but there is a scene in here where they actually light a stuntman on fire for one of the scenes. I don't know if it was
Was
that
it with
or-
those little goblins walking out of the thing? There was two of them.
I can't
that came out.
remember,
Or
but
dwarves. I
I
guess
was
they are.
impressed with the fire in
Were
this
they
movie.
called Dwergy? Something like that.
Whatever they were,
Let me
they don't
see.
talk about them.
I'm
but
gonna
they're
look it
there.
up real quick.
They're in the
One
Lollipop
second.
Guild.
It looked like they
I
used fire a lot in this movie. A lot of it was practical as far as them taking it and then trying to insert it, but the compositing was still early 2000s, which means that it was amazing for the time, but not as good as now.
Okay, so I found the Dwergy, and it's on Universal Monsters Wiki. Let's say the Dwergy are small humanoids. They are dwarf monsters and Dracula's loyal minions and workers. And so I think it's specifically just for this movie. I don't think that existed before this. So there you go.
All right.
Dwarf monsters.
Dwarf monster. They got it all in this movie.
Yeah.
Except the mummy. Which I feel like that was an intentional choice because maybe they wanted to link this with the Brendan Fraser franchise later on.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I actually don't have any evidence on
Yeah.
that. That's just
I
speculation.
don't either.
That
I think
would've
he
been
just has
weird.
fun with monster movies.
Yeah. So we haven't talked about Frankenstein. How do we feel about this new
Frankenstein's
look?
monster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Frankenstein's
Oh,
monster. Sorry,
called out.
You know,
Yeah.
you know how
So
it is,
he's-
sir.
I think obviously he's not accurate to the actual depiction of Frankenstein's monster, but I love his concept visually.
He's very steampunk.
I love the
Electric
little
green
steam.
light.
Yeah, the little steam coming out of his legs while he's moving, kind of that incorporation of mechanics with flesh. I don't know. I like his look
Not to mention his character is nice.
and
He's
his
wholesome.
operatic
Except he's always like,
voice.
He's wholesome.
Half,
Putting on the
half his
Ritz.
lines are screaming.
Yeah, that was
So this kind of fits in a little bit to the weirdness of what they did with the animation, because he's almost fully practical. There is definitely CGI with him.
Seems that
but
way, yeah.
So when you have someone who's like full practical, large scale, they
Yeah.
could have done the same thing with Mr. Hyde, but they didn't. So
Yeah.
you have like full CGI weirdness, those little vampire babies, which I don't even know what's going on with those guys. But then you have this full practical being mixing with them, so it's kind of a weird mishmash sometimes.
David, this is. I can only imagine you watching this movie and being like, "Why the f do all of my good friends like this?"
no, I can see why somebody would like this. It's definitely
Yeah, Reese, you're talking to the person that gave
Wizard of Oz and Godzilla combined.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reese, come on, he understands.
Yeah, he
Tomb of
liked
the
Tomb
Dragon
of the
Emperor 7, so he understands.
Second
Yeah, he
reference
gets
to that
it.
in the episode.
too many, too many.
We'll do it once more.
Anyway, I think Frankenstein's monster, considering that none of this plot is really accurate to any of the literature, is pretty cool. I think I like him.
I like it. I like him too. I don't think he adds much except for like I want
Right.
to live,
Moves
but you
the
have to
plot.
die, and that whole dynamic. Is,
That was weird, but
Yeah.
I liked it.
yeah.
You're supposed to die. I want to live.
kinda like-
I liked that because the whole time he's like, just get rid of me, just kill me. And then at the end, you know, he's got friends. He's been alone his whole life,
Sort
but
of.
now he's got friends that are going there to save him.
They didn't establish that very well, though. I don't think.
They-
I mean, we're not there yet.
No,
still.
well, he said like, well, your friends came to get you. And he's like, friends? And you're like,
That's why it's
never
kind
had
of cheesy.
it's cheesy, but it's
But
like,
it's sweet. It's pure.
"Aw."
I like
You know, and he now wants to live.
I
and-
kind of like his almost hermit persona
Yeah.
where he's living alone, almost monk-like, and he knows these Bible verses and
He's
all
so
that
pure.
stuff. Yeah. So I think his character is interesting, even though he isn't really there for much of the time, which is fine. I don't think he needs to be.
I don't know if this is the exact line, but it's something along these lines. Irina, you know that I'm so bad at getting lines correct. But when he says, I want to live, And then the guy playing Faramir, I don't know what his name is.
Just call him Faramir.
David
it's fine.
Wenham.
But I
His name's
believe
Carl in
his
this.
David Wenham.
Carl.
Yeah.
Carl's line afterward
Carl
is
the Friar.
okay.
Okay.
That's it. That's his response. To, I want to live.
Well, he was the one
Okay.
that was like saying that he needed to die, and then
Yeah.
whenever the guy said he wanted
No,
to live, that was him being like, "All right."
No, it was more like okay. Like it was so funny to me the way he said his delivery.
I
and
guess
that-
I heard it differently than you.
I'm a little confused. Where are we in the plot? 'Cause that's a little
we're
later.
actually not there yet.
Yeah.
No.
but
Yeah,
we're still.
I think that's a little
That's
later.
fine. This episode's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean,
so
the plot
I do.
is a little scattered.
It
Yeah.
is.
It
It
is.
is.
So
Yeah,
this
it's
is
true.
when we get our first sense that there's chemistry between. I mean, there has been chemistry, but the romance develops between Anna
Yeah.
Well-
and Van Helsing. This I thought was not successful.
Not organic.
Yeah.
There's this whole scene where they visited her brother, and he's obviously like far gone, too far
Yeah,
gone.
yep.
And the line is, and I even wrote it down. It was like in the rain, and they had arrived at the windmill, and she was like, "You were right. He's not my brother anymore." And then slight pause. He puts the hat on her head, and then she's like, "Do you have any family, Van Helsing?" And then it just pivots completely to like romance.
Swipe left.
the most unnecessary relationship.
Well, at that point, hadn't he been bit?
This is it's one of those scenarios where in this movie you have a central male character and you have a central female character. So you just
bodice.
assume, things are gonna happen. You know, it's just kind of a given.
Yeah.
It's not organic, but you just know they're the only two that actually kind of fit. So
Yeah,
it'll
And
happen.
That actually might have taken place previously, but I wanted to talk
Yeah,
about it still.
yeah.
I don't think the romance is
The
sold
romance
Yeah,
well.
it's worth
is-
mentioning.
Yeah, I think the actors themselves have the potential for romance, but the time they're given with this film, it's not really allowed to bloom naturally.
Yeah, I agree. So we also have the masquerade scene. This is our first hint that there's going to be some high-flying wiring.
Cirque du
and-
Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil.
That's the scene with the fire guy. There was a guy who
Yes.
catches
Yes.
on that when he catches on fire. That was a real stunt guy on fire. That's
That
what
was
it was.
whenever,
that was cool.
whenever everything goes to chaos.
Yes.
I kind of enjoy this ballroom. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like
The music is cool. The vibe is cool.
I think something that this movie does well is detail of costumes
Yeah.
and sets.
You still
I
get the
think
class
their
of Dracula.
sets- yeah, they're gorgeous, and I think they're beautiful. So I really, really want to commend the design team
Yeah.
as far as
Art
say-
direction was on point.
Yeah.
Every dollar is on the screen
Oh, yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
You can tell. Even if some of it is dated,
Mm-hmm.
you could tell every freaking cent is represented on screen in
There's
this
so
movie.
Agreed
much
completely.
detail. Yeah. It's good. I will say the acrobatics are a little like
Iffy.
That's a little much, but everything else looks really good.
Some of the blue screen work just did not work. When they were doing the acrobatics, it did not feel real
Trapeze.
at all.
Yeah. All right, let's bring this story home. Returning to the Valerius family's castle, Carl explains that Dracula is, in fact, the son of Anna's ancestor, imprisoned within an icy fortress, hidden behind a large, walled map of Transylvania. Using the torn parchment, Van Helsing opens the door, finding Dracula's fortress. The captured monster informs Van Helsing that Dracula possesses a cure for lycanthropy. Carl realizes that only a werewolf can kill Dracula. Capturing Igor, Van Helsing sends him, Anna, and Carl to retrieve the cure, while he frees the monster. As he does so, the monster is struck by lightning twice, bringing Dracula's children to life. Dracula, spotting Van Helsing, transforms into a demonic form, fighting Van Helsing in werewolf form. Alira and Igor both are killed as Anna and Carl retrieve the cure. Following a fierce skirmish, Dracula then reveals to Van Helsing he is in fact the Archangel Gabriel, and it was he who murdered Dracula. Dracula offers to restore all of Van Helsing's memories, but he declines, stating that some things are better left forgotten. Eventually, Van Helsing kills him and his children by biting Dracula's throat, but accidentally kills Anna just as she is about to deliver the cure. Van Helsing and Carl host a funeral for Anna overlooking the sea, where the monster departs by boat, as he witnesses Anna's spirit reuniting with her family in heaven, freed of their vow. Together, Van Helsing and Carl ride off on their next adventure.
They ride off into the
Don
sunset.
Quixote and Pancho Villa.
So I'll say something CGI choreography-wise that does not hold up even in a goofy movie like this. I do not like Van Helsing doing werewolf moves before he turns into a werewolf. I don't like the whole scene where he grabs Anna and Carl, why is his name Carl?
I wondered that the whole movie.
Yeah.
And just like jump up over the door and into the castle. Like,
Honestly, that's a pretty big risk to take for someone that
just
just,
come right in
found out that they have cryptid powers. The thing is, there is so much that goes on in this that little things like that you kind of just ignore as you're watching it.
Yeah.
There's so much ridiculous stuff that happens.
I think that's why there's so much ridiculous stuff that happens that it almost becomes too much for me personally to ignore.
So
I think-
just for
Yeah,
our
go ahead.
listeners' sake, I'm going to streamline this plot real quick.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have Van Helsing, who's a monster hunter. He's sent to Transylvania to kill Dracula because there's an old family of which the chick Anna is the last remaining member. They are
The
cursed
chick.
to purgatory if they don't succeed in killing Dracula. Van Helsing ends up killing Dracula because he's secretly becomes a vampire, becomes a werewolf, but is also the angel Gabriel, and they kill Dracula.
yep.
Even though Anna dies, but she goes to heaven because they kill Dracula. So that's the story.
Need he say more?
Honestly, this kind of sounds like a supernatural TV show plot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It really does. It really does. But with a big budget behind it.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a finale episode
Yep.
of that show.
Oh, gosh.
You are Angel Gabriel. David's rolling his eyes into the back of his head.
Oh, this is so hard.
The thing is, here, you have to be on board with this movie. It is just ridiculous to the extreme.
Yeah.
It lets you know that from the start. I understand this is like the next level. Oh, you
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
tell me
yeah.
he is the Angel Gabriel?
Yep.
At what point can you draw a line? Like,
There is
I don't understand.
This is a movie where I want there to be no line.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, this is what this movie is, just...
Bad acting, check. As long as you keep the moving progress going.
I don't
Bad
think
acting
the
is
acting
bad.
is bad.
It's not.
give it a
It's really
7
not
out of
that
10.
bad.
That's not bad.
No, it's
yeah,
really
that's
not
what I'm
that
saying,
bad.
but it's still not great.
It's passable.
Okay, so
Barely.
No. The thing is, the acting is really good, and I think these actors are super capable. Just the setting that is given them and the screenwriting.
The screenwriting is the problem.
It's that which is holding them back, I think.
There's so many lines in here. There's a few really good gems, but there's a lot where the acting is good, but the lines that come out of their mouths just makes no sense, or
It's
the dumbest thing I've
amazingly
ever heard.
cheesy.
Yes.
Some of it's
yes.
good cheesy, some of it's just stupid and has
Yeah.
no point.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I agree.
Sorry, I'm being
No,
very aggressive.
no.
Right?
Dude, you're fine.
This
You're
is not
totally
a David
fine.
thing.
David,
I'm not
David,
used to being this
David,
aggressive.
Calm.
Yeah.
You agree with the majority of people on this movie.
Yeah.
So don't worry about
Do
it.
not
There's going to be
worry
a
about
lot
that.
of
Yeah.
people, though, who
I
are
love
on
the
your
showdown
No.
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
Van Helsing finally transformed into a werewolf, and then Dracula transformed into his full vampire form. Like, that's just, I don't know, that was, when I first saw this
That
movie,
was
that just blew
Yes.
me
me
away.
too.
They have the sex
I
battle
think-
for the
I
ages.
loved that.
Honestly, because even though CGI is an issue, I think that when you have two characters interacting with each other that are both CGI, your brain kind of just overrides the realistic factor and enjoys it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that scene works.
I also like that Stephen Sommers, he totally has like a child's mind when it
Yeah.
comes to like, oh, this would be so cool.
Yes.
Like, it's totally that. It's like everything. It is a anime / comic book
Yes.
type of, approach
Yeah.
where, oh, he's going to turn into his final form and he's going to turn into his final form and they're just going to have a battle of
But
Yeah.
I'm not
gods.
dead yet.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
but
And this is the point where I actually liked the CGI the most and the choreography the most because there's more than just smacking around. They actually
Yeah.
get into a full-on brawl.
Yeah.
The character design actually works, and they're interacting with each other, like you were
Yes.
saying, Irene. The
Yeah.
CGI on CGI with the practical background actually worked really well.
Because
So I
they're
enjoyed it.
actually when you look critically at the CGI aspect, even though it's all fake, the way that their weight is hitting each other makes sense. I think they had an awareness of the way physics work to some degree with these imaginary characters interacting with one another
To sell
the point where you're okay with
a
it.
CGI character, you have to make them feel like they have, as you said, weight in that
part of the
world.
environment.
And,
Yeah. Yes.
and they have to interact with the environment in a realistic way. They can't be. They can't come off like they're kind of superimposed on a static image.
Actually, a scene that really sticks out to me is when Van Helsing is kind of pulling at his wing.
Yeah.
You know? And I was
yeah.
like, ooh, I can feel that. Even
Yeah,
though, like,
it was
I don't know
cool.
what wings feel like, I can still feel that.
The scene that did it for me was, and not to fast forward to the end of this story, I mean, we're there, but still, the scene where he tackles Anna and just they interact with the bench or whatever, or the sofa or whatever it is. You saw just the tangible. There was a connection there between CGI and reality that was convincing.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the throat grab where he like gets Dracula by the neck and he's like roaring in his face.
Oh, yeah. And then he starts to change back
Yeah.
into human. Yeah.
Wait, so does he lose his superhuman strength at that point, but he didn't earlier?
Oh, it's because the moon was being covered.
No, but okay. Well,
No, he doesn't have all of-
transformed earlier. Though.
Yeah, he doesn't have all. Dude, like think fully transformed vampire versus non-transformed werewolf. Sure, you'll have like the strength of a werewolf, but it won't be as full as the strength of a fully transformed vampire.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so
you
that's
have
their
to
logic,
you have to
probably.
kind of see this as a comic book logic.
Okay.
So I don't know. Any last thoughts? I mean, I guess we kind of touched on the acting. Did we talk about Kate Beckinsale much at all?
We should. I think she's. I know we did touch on her a little bit. I think she's in the exact same boat that Hugh Jackman is.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, you did the most you could with this role, but there's also not much meat on the bone.
Yeah.
My sentiments exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she's a far more capable actress than she's given room to actually portray.
Yeah. I actually think the fact that she was in Underworld before this
Right.
kind of hindered her from having a role that was similar to that.
Yeah.
So she went in a completely different direction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then somehow it turned out very similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about the ending of this movie. I was actually surprised that they killed her character.
I like
too.
it,
Yeah,
actually.
it was a bold choice.
Yeah.
They didn't have that fairy tale ending that I was kind of expecting, like riding off into the sunset. Although I think the cheesiest moment by far in this movie is just seeing her face in the clouds.
Yeah.
And her just like smiling
Yeah.
and the tear like
was a
coming
little
down her
weird,
cheek
yeah.
was terrible.
I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but this scene strongly reminded me of Conan the Barbarian,
Yeah.
the Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yes.
I agree.
version.
Good
yes, the kind of like burning on the pyre and everything. So, yeah. So it had a very similar vibe. I'm not sure if he was inspired by that at all, but
It had a little bit of closure because, I mean, if Van Helsing is the angel Gabriel, then he's probably not going to be able to end up with a mortal anyway. So I guess that romance was, dead from the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
So at least
Yeah.
they
I
got
think
their resolution.
I think it makes sense too because basically it states that her family line was, at odds with this vampire race. And so that's kind of their purpose in life. So now that has been completed, it's okay that her line is ended. I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
legacy
The
is
line
fulfilled.
is ended.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So it made sense. And I kind of like that. I think it adds a little more depth to his character in a strange way, even though it's the finale of a film. Because I don't feel much depth from his character, even though there's supposed to be.
It allows them
But
to move on.
Yeah, it
And
allows
you could
him to move
potentially
on.
see him on another adventure. Like, this is just another
Exactly.
thing under his belt.
Yeah, kind of like I know this comparison has been drawn before, even outside our talking of the film, but the sort of that James Bond vibe, but in this sort of a supernatural setting where they do have romantic relationships, but it kind of is fizzled out or ended by the end of the film, and
Right.
they move on to something new.
Something else in the next
Yeah.
movie.
That'd be an amazing
Next
franchise.
movie.
Right.
Next
yeah.
movie, Yennefer.
Lots of franchise potential
Helsing.
here, guys.
Van Helsing.
It works.
We're going to wrap up the story here, take a quick break. On the other end, we're going to talk about this movie's franchise potential. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're here to talk about
Van Helsing.
Whoa.
That's pretty good.
Scary.
Diamond in the rough.
A diamond in the rough.
Good.
David. You have our numbered scores there in a little bowl. Why don't you pull those at random?
Do that every time.
Pull one at random.
One at random. Noah with a 6.0.
Oh,
right.
wow. Okay. I'm surprised, actually.
What did you think it'd be? 7, 8?
I don't know. Just a little higher, but go ahead.
Yeah. So for whenever I was rating this, I slightly disconnected it from my entertainment value. And
Yeah.
I think.
You mean slightly disconnected it from your personal attachment?
Yeah,
to
that's
the
what I
movie.
mean.
Yeah.
Sorry, words. I think that for the most part, this movie is meant to be fun and stupid, and everyone knows it. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that really doesn't work, and a lot of stuff, or, I mean, I should say, like, in the real world, really wouldn't work. And a lot of CG and a lot of weird lines, but thought it was really fun, and I have kind of a nostalgia attached to it, so
You're not going to raise the score at all?
I think I might.
Oh, okay.
Gosh, it's hard because, you know, I have a lot of fun attached to this, but I usually go with a more critical mind with all my other movies.
Go with your heart.
Go with your
I'll
heart,
go with
Noah.
a 7.
7. Dang,
All right,
a whole
that's
point.
honestly
All right.
that's fine. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I'll go with a 7.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really fun movie. I think it's stupid, but it's really enjoyable. And I think that's all it needs to be.
Gotcha.
All
That
right,
makes sense.
Next one.
Next up, we have a David with a 5.5.
All right.
David,
That makes sense.
not
That tracks.
the David.
Yeah, I think that this movie had itself all over the place, and I had a very hard time trying to figure out where I was going to put this one. I feel like most of this movie is riding on pacing, energy, and CGI, and even nowadays the CGI, I guess you could say, could even draw it back even more. I'm trying to be more critical to when it came out. I think that helps it a lot when you look at it from the time it came out. I was thinking about even raising it more for that.
Just the CGI?
Yeah, go with your
Just-
gut though.
Yes. Well, I mean, the reason I was going to do that was because it was so good back then. But at the same time, this is 2004. They're using the pinnacle of the technology at the time, handed down from people who already did it before them. They weren't adding too much that was actually new.
Yeah.
So it feels old when you compare it to the other movies that came up before it. I mean, a lot of this was actually done in Lord of the Rings. I mean, all sorts of movies before it that...
Wait.
It's
You're
the
saying
same.
Lord of the Rings did CGI?
Yes, I
The
am
king of
saying
practical effects?
that. They did practical and CGI. This movie actually used a lot of CGI that they based from Lord of the Rings in their style, and a lot of it was on character, the skin textures, and a lot of the
Yeah.
CGI
Yeah.
development. So it's just this. It used a lot of stuff that was already out there. They weren't innovating too much, so it just barely passes. And I got bored. I fell asleep once watching this. I wasn't as entertained as I feel like other people were. I didn't have that sentimental attachment.
Yeah.
So going back through it, I just can't give it any higher than a 5.5, I think.
I think your rating of this kind of reminds me of how I felt about some of the Ocean's films, where I feel like I wasn't in the right age bracket
Yeah.
to watch this for the first time. So maybe if you were younger, it
I
would
feel
have
like
that
I would
appeal.
like it a lot more.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you're here to give that score.
Yay.
I thought Oceans was for an older age bracket.
I felt like it was sort of a high school
Really?
thing. Yeah.
I thought it was like kind of general audience.
I
type
didn't.
movie.
All right, I didn't think it was age bracketed,
Sorry,
but I
I
did
threw
feel
this
like
into
it
a
was
different
a,
category.
you know, kind of a watch it at the time it came out movie.
We
Yeah.
are too much in oceans.
Sorry.
Like we missed the ocean zeitgeist.
It's still on my brain.
Yeah. But yeah, I also wish I could talk a lot more about the CGI and the style and the way they use so many different effects. That could be a whole separate thing if I wanted it to be.
Yeah, they have so much.
There's so many good things about the CGI in this movie for the time.
Yeah.
But moving on to the next score, I give to Irina with a 7.5.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
what?
I'm sorry. I'm
She
sorry.
went with
It's
her
so
heart.
high.
That's fine.
But honestly, I think this is incredibly entertaining. I do realize all the problems it has, and I think for me, a lot of movies lack heart to them, and that's what brings them down as far as when I'm scoring them. But this one does. Like, it's almost like it unapologetically just goes with what it wants to do. And I think that's what the director had intended. He just wanted everything in this. So I think it has a good energy. It has a good drive behind it. I'm okay with forgiving a lot of the details, although I do cringe a little at some of the CGI effects here. I think a lot of the problems were, I was having a discussion with David not too long ago about how they were partially inspired by Lord of the Rings, and I would even venture to say kind of where Pirates was going with a lot of the kind of circus acts that they do, where it's more entertaining special effects. And it felt like they were trying to do the next step up, but what they ended up doing instead of trying to bump up the progress of CGI was overkill it. And I feel like you could have a more subtle film here that was more effective, but I don't know. I still enjoy it, and I think the actors did a good job. I would still watch it. I still do watch it when Halloween season comes around, but definitely not a perfect film. Yeah. But I think it sticks with a mood, and I am on board for it.
Yeah.
Next up, AJ with a 6.
So I'm going to echo Noah here. You know, it's kind of puts you in a difficult situation where you come into this movie with an emotional attachment to it. This movie does something magical where it disarms the cold cynic in me, which is a pretty monumental task. Even when I came into this movie with the intent of analyzing it critically, I still end up enjoying it and having a good time.
Yep.
It's not to say, like we've all said, that it doesn't have issues. It does. I honestly went in expecting worse CGI than I saw, and I thought it held up better in most parts. There's still some pretty
So
poor looking stuff, but
I'm right there with you.
yeah, it definitely looked better than I was expecting, especially since that's one of the biggest criticisms of this movie. The acting isn't stellar, but it's not abysmal. It's pretty middle of the road, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's a product of the context that it's edited in.
Yeah.
And the pace here is kind of a double-edged sword, because you may have these actors who are high caliber acting as if they're in, you know, a full-on drama, but, you know, the pace just keeps pushing forward in the comic book style that it's in. So the plot is probably the biggest mess. You've got a lot going on, a lot just kind of splattered on, throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks kind of thing. It's still fun, and that's the biggest charm for it. And this can be my Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, so it's rewatchable for me. It's fun, and yeah, it's hard to get around that entertainment aspect of it that just kind of clicks without. It's disarming. That's the biggest thing about it, is it disarms the analytical side of my brain, and I don't know, that's a big feat for me. With that said, you know, in all fairness, you know, I still have to take the critiques in stride, you know, give it kind of the same shot as I do every other movie. So that's all. I think I'll stand at a 6. I think that's fair.
Okay.
It's very difficult to try and put the critics cap on for some of these films.
Yeah.
All right, and last but not least, we have Reese with a 6.
I'm right there with you guys. Like, it's a conundrum right now with this movie. You're right. It is disarming with how blatantly entertaining and stupid it is. And I think my main thing is, like, how much of this did they know was stupid and how much of it did they not? Stephen Sommers, I think he's just a director who's everything in the kitchen sink, throw it all in there, see what sticks.
Yeah.
He's just a child having fun. I'm not trying to say he has a child's brain, but he's just like, I can imagine him thinking up all these ideas and like, yeah, put that in there. That's great. I'm not going to say no to anything. He's like a yes man when it comes to this. And I applaud that audacity, because literally every frame of this movie is packed with something insane and in some way enjoyable. I think the movie's main faults lie in the fact that I don't find Van Helsing to be a compelling character, nor do I find Anna to be a compelling character.
Right.
There's just not a lot of development there. And yes, this movie is super entertaining, but I want at least a marginal amount of emotional connection with a character, and it does something towards the end, I guess, but I still just don't exactly care, or don't really care what happens to this guy.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think the action sequences are very well executed. Every dollar is on the screen, as I mentioned before. It's constantly distracting you with bits and baubles, and just attention to detail, at least from an aesthetic standpoint, is like a 10 out of 10. But I'm not rooting for this character like I was, O'Connell from The Mummy, to pull another Stephen Sommers movie. Like that's a more interesting guy. I'm like behind him. But I can't deny the fun I had with this movie. I don't think it's enough to get it up to a 7, but I do want to slightly adjust upwards to 6.5.
Right.
I think that feels appropriate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this similar case. I had a hard time disconnecting from, my past with this movie, even though I didn't particularly enjoy it before. There's a connection here.
Yeah.
Go with your heart.
So yeah, I'll stick with the 6.5.
I have a question. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to follow up on Reese, because, I was really close to moving it up too. And I think distinction here for me is, with Sommers, and like we both said, is throwing everything in there and seeing what sticks. Like, at the end of the day, it's their job to be responsible and kind of pare down things. And I mean, this movie could definitely have kept the same tone and feel while giving us a little bit of character depth. And so since that didn't happen, then I kind of have to hold them accountable for it.
Yeah.
But no, I was very on the edge of also moving up too. So it's really tough.
Yeah. All right. So crunch those numbers.
Well,
AJ.
Irina, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to ask, like, would you prefer, out of sheer curiosity, watching this or Mummy 2?
This one, no question.
I would take this one over Mummy
I actually
2.
think Mummy Returns has aged horribly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, Mummy 1,
Mummy 1
the
I'd
first
take
Mummy
obviously
is,
over this.
I think, one of his best.
And it's really hard for me, actually, because I, like, similar to what Reese was saying, I like Brendan Fraser a lot. I like the character. So even if I don't like the movie as much, just seeing Brendan Fraser makes me happier.
I don't like the movie.
Dude, it's got one of the...
Wait, the first Mummy?
Second Mummy.
Oh,
Second.
I thought you were saying
You said
the
Mummy
first
Returns,
one.
didn't you?
I thought you were talking
we
about
also
the first
referenced
one,
the
and I
first
was
one.
about
But
to
she
have
asked
to-
specifically.
Yeah,
Mummy
she did
Returns.
ask specifically about the second, but when you responded, we were talking about the
All
first
right.
one.
Anyway, that was all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is going to be interesting. So our title average across the group, we have a 6.5, which seems like a pretty fair score in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That follows John Carter at a 6.8. So I think that's an interesting question: is John Carter or Van Helsing?
John Carter.
Oof.
I picked Van Helsing just because of the sheer, just how willing it is to be goofy and fun. I
Yeah.
watch it over John Carter.
John Carter
would
has some good looks
rather-
to it, but it's also
Yeah.
got a massive budget.
I would
So,
much
I wanna-
rather watch this than John Carter.
Let me just say regarding the two movies, emotional attachment wise, I'd take this one, and like it's really fun. But if you look at it on a technical, this movie versus this movie, and you're being analytical, I'd say technically John Carter's a better movie.
100%.
Yeah. Well,
So I think it lines up score wise. But if I had to pick one that I would keep, I would take Van Helsing.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know.
That's interesting, though. Yeah.
All right, let's move into critics And guys, it is a bloodbath.
Oh, yeah, we know.
Appropriate.
Yeah. So on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 24%. Mm-hmm. That means 1/4 of critics would recommend you go see this movie.
Yep.
And audience score was 57%, so just under fresh.
About where I'm at.
Yeah. Metacritic, this has a 35, which is in the red zone, and that's not for a touchdown. That is bad. Audience, 6.1, so barely fresh. And on IMDb, it is also a barely positive score of 6.1 from audiences. So I would say mixed to positive for audiences and negative for critics.
Out of all the movies, that makes the most sense to me.
Honestly, this is one of those films where if you watch it, you just know critics aren't going to like it.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there going, yeah, critics are going to hate this.
Well, because
but-
on paper this movie's terrible,
Yeah,
but you
critically
just
bad.
you just like it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Sometimes I have a problem with people crucifying a movie like this.
Yeah, exactly. I
Like,
agree.
when it's so obviously like just trying to have fun and
Yeah.
just throwing
Yeah.
everything at you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's stupid. This is not a movie you're meant to analyze.
Yeah.
But it's, gosh, if it isn't fun, you know?
You see
Like,
comparisons to
it
this
is fun.
movie and Hansel and Gretel with the Jeremy Renner.
I do think those are comparable. I think Van Helsing's better, but Hansel and Gretel had the same kind of tongue-in-cheek. Not tongue.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's got
Hansel
the
and Gretel
vibe.
Hansel and Gretel is more tongue-in-cheek than this is. This
Yeah.
one's more just like campy.
I
But,
didn't actually see that film yet, so
It's
I'll have
fine.
to watch it.
But what
It's
about
fine.
Gretel and Hansel?
That's completely
That's,
different.
That's great. Okay, box office. This movie cost $160 million back in 2004, and it released on May 5th. It was playing against the second weekend of Mean Girls and the third weekend of Man on Fire.
Wait a minute. This came out during the same time Mean Girls did?
That's
Yep.
weird.
And Man
Well,
on
yep.
Fire.
What?
And Pirates of the Caribbean.
Man on Fire won Best Picture, didn't it?
Yeah, that one was
No,
pretty
it
good.
did not.
It didn't?
That movie is actually one of the few that has has negative reviews from
What?
critics, but
Really?
audiences love it.
Wait, that's
Yeah.
the Denzel Washington
Yes.
one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Critics weren't a big fan of that movie.
That's
Okay,
strange.
never mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys, let's guess this one. David,
Okay.
what do you think this one did worldwide?
Sorry, I'm going to have a reminder of the...
160.
Okay.
160 million was the budget. Yes.
I'm going to go with 290.
290. Irina.
250.
Okay.
I'll
Noah.
go with 170.
We're
Wow.
getting faster at this.
AJ.
265.
I'm probably way off then.
Who
based
said
on the
290?
fact that
David. You were the closest.
Hey.
Worldwide, it did 300 million.
Dang, really?
Okay.
That's a pretty good guess.
I thought that it was just not successful.
Sounds
maybe
good.
the star power.
It's a good amount of money for a movie that would have cost less than 160
Yeah,
million.
yeah.
Which at the time is a lot, and I'm pretty sure with inflation that's handily over 200 million, that's a massive budget.
Just
I-
slightly over double.
Yeah, I will say the movie, looks the price, but I think that was a really bold move to put 160 million into your Van Helsing movie that has no proven, power at the box office.
Right. It was a risk.
CG and star power.
So it is technically a bomb, but it's not the type where it's like it doesn't go on as a historical oh, that was one of the biggest bombs ever.
Right.
It's kind of one that's just swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And has since, I feel like, developed something of a cult following. This is a movie that there is no DVD bin that does not have Van Helsing in it. It's everywhere. Anytime I'm rummaging around in the Walmart bin, it's, here's 5 copies of Van Helsing.
For $5.
Yeah. Which I imagine it's there because people see it and they're like, oh, hey, remember this movie? Let's buy it.
And
that
watch
was
it
fun.
one
Gosh,
night with some popcorn.
the royalties on this movie where they're just, man, we keep getting like $100,000 a year on $5 movies at Walmart.
Yeah, I bet this is a top seller DVD-wise. I know the
Yeah.
studios don't actually make a lot on that. Once a movie gets to bargain bin status, I think there's barely a return on the dollar there.
Yeah.
But it's still of note. I feel like
Yeah.
almost anyone you walk around or talk to on the street is going to know what Van Helsing is. It actually has a bit of a footprint. But that wasn't enough to save it or give it a sequel.
Yeah.
By the point it became a somewhat cult status, it's kind of the ship has sailed on this franchise. At the time, this Universal was very confident in the power of the Van Helsing movie. Stephen Sommers was coming off 2 big box office hits, The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. So they were like, okay, let's give him more of the Universal Monsters catalog. He's proved that he can launch these franchises, and let's really open him up to a bigger budget and give him more of our monsters and see what he can do. And this movie was meant to kind of kick off, in a way, another Universal monster movie, craze.
Renaissance, if you will.
Yeah, cinematic universe, I guess. It was supposed to basically boost the profiles of all the characters in this movie. Like, oh, now there's more awareness for Frankenstein, this new version, and this new version of Dracula, and Van Helsing himself. And there was even a TV show that was already, like, revving to go called, I think it was Transylvania. But they were developing that, and after this movie kind of bombed, they just, like, cut it out.
They decided, never mind.
We'll take Adam Sandler.
Yeah, a lot of it just... This movie, despite it not completely doing terrible numbers at the box office, really kind of muted a lot of the excitement that Universal was expecting for this new line of Universal monsters. And they've been kind of struggling with that ever since. They haven't really been able to find a good groove until very recently. The Invisible Man was finally a hit for them. That movie cost a little and made a lot, so I think we actually are going to be seeing something of a Universal Monsters revival, but it's going to be... They're being a lot smarter about it. They're not pumping huge amounts of funds into these big budget films like they did with the Tom Cruise debacle.
I feel like they can do a lot with a little nowadays.
Yeah, you can. And so they're going to take the smaller scale approach. They're going with the Jason Blum, who does all the Blumhouse movies, is really kind of spearheading that. And I want to say that The Wolfman is next, and it's going to be by the same director who did The Invisible Man.
Are we going to get a creature from the Black Lagoon anytime soon?
I hope so.
That's what I'm waiting for.
I think that's one that should.
I think Shape of Water actually kind of fills that void.
Yeah,
but does it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to see another creature from the Black Lagoon. So yeah, Van Helsing, it came close to being the success story that they wanted it to be, but it cost way too much, and therefore we have no sequel or spin-offs or anything of the like. I'm going to throw this over to you guys. Would you be interested if they did like an Old Man Logan type situation with this, where Hugh Jackman came back to the role of Van Helsing, and it's, I don't know, different vibe, more serious maybe?
I would
Only
like that.
because it's Hugh Jackman.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
but I
Only because it's him.
Okay, so here's the weird thing, though. I would love to see him do it again and have it be grittier and more serious. However, I would want them to disconnect from this one entirely.
Yeah, I would want to see something that's not too overlapping with Supernatural or like Constantine from Arrowverse or something like that. They still have to carve out their own niche.
Yeah.
I definitely want it to actually... If I'm to see a Van Helsing, I would love for it to be a more traditionally Dracula-esque story.
Or
not even
the
Dracula.
Mummy.
Like the book. What I mean is, I want it to be in that vibe.
Kind of without the pageantry of this one, and just sort of more down to earth.
Yeah. Trying
to kind of in a way sleuth their way to find the supernatural.
I think the problem with the MonsterVerse that they every single time they try and do it is they want to make it a popcorn movie, but I think they need to avoid it being a popcorn movie and actually be really serious.
Right.
Well, I would argue that's The Invisible Man.
I think
I haven't seen The Invisible Man.
One of the few examples of supernatural entertainment that I've seen lately was I actually really enjoyed Penny Dreadful, which is a TV show that focuses a lot on the supernatural literature. And that one is actually really well done. I actually really enjoy that show. So if they did something kind of similar to that vein, but yeah, like you're saying, kind of in the way that it's similar to what the Invisible Man is doing.
There was a Van Helsing TV show recently too, wasn't there?
Really?
Yeah.
I can't remember that.
I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's okay.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix.
Maybe I'll check that out.
All right, so that wraps up our discussion on Van Helsing, and that's our first film in our series of vampire-based films.
Do we
Irina.
judge the
Yes.
honorability?
Oh yeah, I guess we can do that. Dishonorable or honorable death for Van Helsing? I would say it's pretty easy. It's honorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nowhere
It
to go
ends.
with
It ends on its own terms. There's a potential future there, but I don't think it
Yeah.
demands it.
You're satisfied knowing that, oh, he'll just move on to whatever.
Well, it's like
next.
there's adventure out there kind of ending.
Yeah.
But it's
Adventure is out
that is
there.
a conclusion in and of itself.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no loose ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. You all agree?
Yeah,
Honorable?
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Okay. Honorable for Van Helsing. Now, Irina, what film are we talking about next in our lineup here?
All right, since I didn't get to do Near Dark, we're going to continue with the vampire theme and do Interview with the Vampire. Yeah.
Interview with the Vampire.
Yep,
All
yep,
right. Hey, I don't feel like a lot of people know this. I didn't until yesterday, but that is a 2-film franchise.
Wait, what?
You won't
Yeah.
believe what the second one is.
Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, I actually did know that.
Yeah.
You knew that?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It is weird.
This is going to be an exciting discussion, though. We get to revisit our boy Brad Pitt.
And the third
So
one
sooner
is
than
League
I
of Extraordinary
and Tom
Gentlemen.
Cruise.
Yeah.
This
All
will
right.
be our third Brad Pitt. Well, not third. This will be like the 5th Brad Pitt
Fourth.
movie.
Wait, this connects to the latest Mummy somehow too. So we went on the monsters tangent with Van Helsing and this upcoming one, and now we're doing
Yeah, because
interview with
Tom
the
Cruise is in-
interview
yeah.
with the vampire.
Gotcha.
So now we have Tom Cruise
Yep,
and
yep.
That's true.
It all
Yeah.
comes together.
perfect bridge.
And
We'll
Brad
have an
Pitt.
Ocean's
Exactly.
11
Walt was
of
in World War
Universal
Z.
Pictures.
yeah, wow,
A lot of connections here.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood.
Anyway, until then, you can find us on all podcast streaming platforms. Please like, rate, subscribe, give
Ring
us
that
5 stars.
bell.
Yeah, give us 5 stars on Apple if you're feeling very kind. It all helps with the algorithm there.
Please.
Please be kind.
Yeah. If you want to reach out to us, the best way is our Instagram page. Just leave a comment. David will pick it up, and
I'm here for you.
yeah, he's here. He's here to catch
We're
you.
taking suggestions.
Yeah. Anyway, next week.
Just not too seriously.
Next week, Interview with the Vampire.
Hey.
Goodbye, guys.
You're a deranged psychopath. We all have our little problems.